She was feeding her baby with leftovers, until the billionaire CEO sat down, and everything changed. She sat hidden at the edge of the bustling food court, quietly feeding her baby leftover scraps from someone else's sandwich, until a billionaire CEO took the seat opposite her, and her entire world shifted. In a heartbeat, one brief encounter set in motion a journey of healing, redemption, and a love neither had anticipated. Yet just as she finally believed peace was within her grasp, a photo arrived, bringing back the man who had abandoned her. And the past she thought was buried? It had never stopped watching. Before we continue, if you enjoy touching and inspiring stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Now, let's get back to the story. The mall food court buzzed with activity. The laughter of children echoed, trays clattered onto tables, and the occasional vibration of someone's phone hummed quietly. But in the farthest corner, hidden from the bustling crowd behind a solitary pillar, sat a woman who seemed almost invisible. Her name was Claire Jennings. Her once vibrant golden blonde hair was now pulled into a weary bun, strands falling loosely over her pale, tired face. She cradled her 7-month-old son, Max, tenderly in her arms. At her feet lay a worn, faded diaper bag, stuffed to capacity and frayed at the seams. On the tray in front of her sat a half-eaten sandwich, not hers, but abandoned, untouched, except for a single bite someone else had left behind. Claire glanced around cautiously before taking small pieces of the soft bread, gently mashing them between her fingers and feeding them carefully to Max. The baby chewed slowly, his trusting eyes blinking sleepily up at her. Claire offered him a soft smile, not one that said, "I'm okay," but one that said, "I have to be." Across the crowded space sat Ethan Blake, the billionaire CEO of Blake Tech, alone as always. A perfectly tailored navy suit hugged his frame, and a gleaming Rolex peeked discreetly from beneath his sleeve. His assistant had offered to join him, but Ethan always preferred solitude. No distractions, no small talk. He cut his grilled salmon mechanically, barely registering its taste, but then something caught his attention. Initially just a vague form in his peripheral vision, but soon much more. He paused, fork midway to his mouth. The way Claire held her child, not as an obligation, but as her whole world. The way she smiled without happiness, the way she carefully scanned the area before feeding her baby, not from shame, but from cautious necessity. An unexpected knot tightened in Ethan's throat. Their eyes met briefly, and Claire immediately looked away, embarrassment flickering across her face. Compelled by an unfamiliar impulse, Ethan stood abruptly. Approaching strangers was not in his nature, and neither was experiencing these unsettling emotions. Claire froze when she saw him approach, her grip tightening protectively around Max. She lowered her gaze, shoulders tensed, bracing herself. Was she about to be reprimanded? Asked to leave? Ethan quietly sat down across from her, his expression calm, unjudging, simply observant. "You okay?" he asked softly. Claire hesitated, confusion mingling with disbelief. "Yes," she whispered hurriedly. "We're fine. Just resting." Her hand subtly inched the tray closer, as if fearing he might take it away. Ethan's eyes flicked briefly to the sandwich. "You fed him that?" Claire swallowed nervously. "It was left behind. I checked to make sure it wasn't touched." He paused thoughtfully. "He deserves better than leftovers." Claire's eyes sparked defensively, filled with both pain and pride. "I know. But today, this is what we have." Max made a soft, contented sound, breadcrumbs smudging his mouth. Ethan looked at the child, a strange, gentle twist forming in his chest. The baby reached out curiously, tiny fingers landing trustingly on Ethan's wrist. Ethan didn't move, captivated by the delicate, warm grasp. He looked up at Claire. "Let me buy you both lunch." Claire shook her head immediately, determined. "No, I don't take charity." "It's not charity," he responded firmly. "It's just lunch." She hesitated, biting her lip anxiously. Ethan saw the defensive walls in her eyes, walls built by life's relentless hardships. He leaned forward slightly. "You're doing your best. I can see that. Let me do mine." Claire blinked quickly, fighting tears, and finally nodded once. "Okay." 15 minutes later, their table was transformed. Chicken soup for Max, a grilled chicken wrap for Claire, bottled water, fruit cups, and even a warm muffin were neatly arranged in front of them. Claire stared at the meal, then at Ethan, murmuring quietly, "You didn't have to get all this." "I know," he replied simply. Claire gently tore a piece of the muffin, handing it to Max, who giggled with delight. For one fleeting moment, Claire seemed to breathe freely. Ethan tilted his head slightly. "What's his name?" "Max. A strong name. He's stronger than I am." Ethan offered a faint smile. "I doubt that." Claire studied him curiously. "Why are you doing this?" Ethan paused briefly, his voice softer now. "Because I know what it's like to lose something, and to wish someone had just sat down with me." Claire didn't press further, simply nodding with gentle understanding. For the first time in months, she felt truly seen. Not invisible, not pitied, just acknowledged. Her phone buzzed abruptly on the table, worry flickering across her face. Quickly standing, she gathered her things. "I have to go." Ethan stood with her, concerned. "Is something wrong?" I have to get back before they lock the doors." "Doors to where?" She hesitated, embarrassment returning. "The shelter. They close intake at 5. If I'm late, we sleep outside." Ethan stared at her, momentarily stunned. "Let me take you." "No," Claire said hastily. "I can't. I don't even know you. I'm not dangerous. I know who you are," Claire interrupted gently. "You're Ethan Blake. Everyone knows you. But that doesn't mean I can trust you." Ethan stepped back, acknowledging her caution. She turned to leave, but Max, resting on her shoulder, turned back, reaching once more toward Ethan with his small, open hand. Claire paused, glancing back thoughtfully. "If you really want to help," she finally said, "meet me here tomorrow, same time." Ethan nodded earnestly. "I will." Claire offered one last lingering look before disappearing into the crowd, Max secure in her arms. Ethan stood still, watching her go, and for the first time in years, the weight of loneliness lifted just slightly. Ethan returned to his table, but his lunch remained untouched. The salmon, now cold, sat forgotten as he stared blankly at the crowd in front of him. She had said to come back tomorrow, but what if she didn't? He didn't even know her name, and yet he couldn't shake her from his thoughts. Not the way she looked at her child with exhausted love, not the way her voice trembled as she said, "Today, this is what we have." That night, Ethan walked into his penthouse apartment, floor-to-ceiling windows, spotless surfaces, total silence. No music, no television, just the low hum of the city below and the ache in his chest that refused to be ignored. He sat on the edge of his couch, loosening his tie, head in his hands. It wasn't just pity. It wasn't curiosity. It was something deeper, something he hadn't felt in a long time. A memory, a shadow, a heartbeat, and a tiny hand on his wrist. Across the city, Claire lay awake in the dim light of the shelter, her body pressed against Max, who slept curled into her chest. Around them, quiet breathing and the rustle of worn blankets filled the space, but sleep refused to come. Ethan Blake. She'd recognized him immediately. The man from the headlines, the suits, the impossible lifestyle. And yet, he'd sat down. He'd seen her. Really seen her. Not as a problem, not as a case, but as a person. She pulled the blanket over Max's tiny legs and whispered into the dark, "We'll be okay, baby." But the question hung in the silence. What if he actually comes back? He did. 20 minutes early. Ethan sat at the same table, a small bag resting beside him, glancing at the entrance every few seconds like a man waiting for something he wasn't sure would happen. And then, she appeared. Claire walked slowly through the food court, Max in a soft sling pressed against her chest. She wore the same cardigan, her hair tied back more carefully this time. When she saw him, her eyes widened slightly. Surprised, maybe even a little unsure. "You came," she said, as if confirming something to herself. "I said I would." She hesitated, then sat down across from him, still guarded. He gently slid the bag toward her. "I brought a few things. I wasn't sure what Max eats, so I just guessed." Claire peeked inside. Jars of baby food, a pack of diapers, wipes, even soft cloths, and a small teether. Her fingers tightened on the bag. "You didn't have to—" "I know," he said, "but I wanted to." She pulled out one of the jars and carefully opened it, feeding Max a tiny spoonful. The baby kicked lightly, content. Ethan watched them both for a moment, then spoke. "Have you always lived here, in the city?" Claire nodded without looking up. "Born and raised. Grew up bouncing between school and hospitals. My mom died when I was 12. Grandma raised me." "What happened after?" "I went to nursing school, worked a few years. Then I got pregnant." Her voice softened. "Max's father left in the 3rd month, said he wasn't ready. After that, everything unraveled. Lost my job. Couldn't find steady work. No one hires someone with a baby and no backup." Ethan stayed quiet, letting her words settle in the space between them. "I tried to keep it together. Did what I could. But shelters, they don't ask questions. They just give you a bed." Ethan looked at Max, now gently sucking on the end of a baby spoon. "You've done more than keep it together." Claire gave a short laugh, not bitter, just tired. "Surviving isn't the same as living." "Sometimes it's harder," he said. She met his gaze then, holding it longer than before. "Why are you really doing this?" Ethan leaned back slightly. "Because I know what it's like to feel invisible, and to wish someone had just stayed." Claire nodded slowly, her walls still there, but not as high. She glanced at his wrist, the same one Max had grabbed yesterday. "You have kids?" The question came gently, but it changed him. His eyes darkened for a moment, his shoulders tightened, and then, quietly, "I had a daughter." Claire's face softened. "What happened?" "She passed away 3 years ago. Heart condition. She was 6. The silence stretched long between them. "I'm sorry," Claire said. Ethan offered the smallest nod. "Her name was Ava. She loved stars, jelly beans, used to believe airplanes were flying whales." Claire smiled through the ache in her chest. "She sounds amazing?" She was. They didn't speak after that, but they didn't need to. Sometimes grief understands grief, even when it has no words left. The days that followed fell into a rhythm neither of them had expected. Same table, same time, new layers slowly peeled back. Ethan brought lunch, Claire brought stories. Max brought light, and beneath all of it, something began to grow. Not romance, not yet, but something steady, something safe, and for people who had lost too much too soon, that was enough. On the 7th day, Claire approached the table to find Ethan already waiting, sleeves rolled up, eyes softer than usual. She sat down, and he handed her an envelope. "What's this?" "Your second chance." Claire opened it slowly. "Administrative assistant interview, Blake Foundation." She looked up sharply. "You arranged this?" "I didn't fake anything," he said. "I saw your old resume online, nursing degree, admin experience. You're qualified. This is real." Claire stared at him. "Why?" "Because you deserve to stand again. On your own." She held the paper to her chest. "Thank you." Max babbled in her arms, waving a tiny hand in Ethan's direction. "Guess he approves," Ethan said with a grin. They shared a quiet laugh. But then a woman in a beige suit approached the table. "Mr. Blake, your meeting starts in 10. He stood, but before walking away, turned back. "You'll go?" "To the interview." He nodded. Claire smiled faintly. "I'll go." "And tomorrow," he added. "There's something I want to tell you. Something I've kept buried for a long time." Her smile faded into something gentler. "Okay." Ethan turned to leave, but as Claire looked down at the envelope again, she noticed a line on the back, "Founded in memory of Ava Blake." She froze. And in that moment, the weight behind every action Ethan had taken became clear. Her heart ached in ways she hadn't expected. Who was this man, really? Claire couldn't stop looking at the name. "Founded in memory of Ava Blake." Printed in soft gray, almost invisible on the back of the interview envelope. But now, it burned into her mind. Ava. The little girl Ethan had spoken about in a voice so full of grief, it had cracked the space between them. The daughter he had lost. The one he still carried like a ghost in his chest. Claire folded the paper carefully and slipped it into her bag. But the name followed her, and something deep inside her whispered, "You're not the only one trying to survive." The morning of the interview, Claire woke before sunrise. The shelter buzzed with muffled voices, early risers, crying toddlers, the rattle of someone shaking powdered formula in a bottle. Max slept peacefully beside her, one chubby hand wrapped around her shirt. She sat up slowly, quietly. There wasn't much she could do to prepare. She only had one decent blouse and a pair of clean jeans. But she made the best of them. She pulled her hair back, wiped her shoes, and pressed a soft kiss to Max's forehead before leaving him in the care of a volunteer. Before stepping out the door, she whispered to herself, "This is the first step back." The Blake Foundation didn't look anything like the places Claire was used to. It wasn't cold or corporate. It was warm. Wide windows flooded the space with natural light. The walls were lined with framed quotes from real people. Mothers, children, survivors. The floors were polished wood, not tile. The front desk didn't even have glass between the receptionist and visitors. It felt human. And behind the receptionist, hanging quietly on the wall, was a photo of a little girl with soft curls and bright eyes. Underneath it, a small inscription, "Ava Blake, the reason we begin again." Claire stood there for a long time before someone called her name. The interview wasn't what she expected. The woman from HR didn't ask about the gaps in her employment or the shelter address she'd scribbled on her forms. She didn't ask about Max or why Claire's references were outdated. Instead, she asked, "What motivates you?" Claire blinked, then answered, "Honestly, my son." She spoke quietly but clearly, about wanting stability, about doing everything she could with what she had. She didn't sugarcoat it. She didn't dramatize it either. "I don't need pity," she finished. "Just a chance to stand up on my own." The HR manager smiled warmly. "Good. Because we don't hire out of sympathy. We hire out of belief, and Mr. Blake believes in you." Claire's eyes widened. "Wait, I got the job?" "You start Monday." Her hands trembled slightly as she held the paperwork. She blinked twice, biting her lip. "Thank you," she said softly. "Thank you so much." That afternoon, she found Ethan already waiting at their table in the food court. This time, he wasn't in a suit. His shirt sleeves were rolled casually to the elbows, his posture relaxed, but his eyes sharpened the moment he saw her. She didn't speak. She just walked up to the table, opened her bag, and laid the acceptance letter in front of him. Ethan read the first line, then looked up slowly. "You got it." Claire nodded. "I start Monday." He smiled, fully this time. No hesitation, no restraint, just something honest and quietly proud. Max babbled on her hip, stretching his arms toward the table. Ethan reached out, gently holding one of the tiny hands. "You did this," Claire said. "No," Ethan replied. "You did this. I just opened a door. You walked through it." There was a pause. Then she looked at him and asked the question she hadn't dared ask until now. "Who was Ava?" Ethan's smile faded, replaced with something far softer. "She was my daughter." Claire sat down slowly. You said she passed away. He nodded. She was 6, born with a heart defect. We fought for time, and for a while, we had it. Then, one day, we didn't. Claire lowered her eyes. She loved space, Ethan added, his voice distant. Used to say stars were just angels blinking at us. She collected glow-in-the-dark stickers and taped them all over her ceiling, called it her sky. Claire felt her throat tighten. I thought money could fix it, he said. I threw myself into work, bought the best doctors, machines, rooms, but none of that was what she needed most. He looked up at Claire, eyes shining. She needed me, and I wasn't there enough. Claire reached across the table slowly and rested her hand on his. She would be proud of this foundation, she whispered. Ethan nodded. I hope so. For a long while they just sat there, not as a billionaire and a woman rebuilding her life, but as two people who had lost something irreplaceable. Claire's phone buzzed. She checked it, expecting a message from the shelter or a friend from the mother's group. Instead, her face changed. Eyes narrowed, shoulders stiffening. Ethan noticed immediately. What is it? She hesitated. It's Max's father. Ethan's posture shifted. What? Claire took a deep breath. He saw a post I made weeks ago, asking for used baby supplies. He wants to meet, says he wants to be part of Max's life now. Ethan's expression darkened, but he held it back. Do you want that? Claire looked down at her son. I don't know. He left before I even started showing. He's never seen Max. But he says he's clean now, trying to be better. Ethan didn't respond at first. Are you going to meet him? I think I have to, she said. For Max's sake, not his. Where? A small cafe near the shelter. Tomorrow, noon? Ethan nodded slowly. Then I'll be close by. You don't have to. I know, he interrupted gently. But I want to. Claire met his eyes again. This time, longer. She saw no pressure there, no expectation, just a quiet promise. If he's serious, Ethan said, we'll know. And if he's not. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Claire looked down at Max and smiled faintly. The baby reached again for Ethan, as he always did, small hands, wide open, and for the first time, she didn't hesitate. She let Ethan take him. He held Max carefully, naturally, and neither of them noticed the figure sitting across the food court with a hood pulled low over his face, holding a phone. Camera aimed. The cafe was nearly empty when Claire walked in. Outside, the sky was draped in soft gray, and a light drizzle streaked the windows. Inside, it was warmer, the kind of quiet that made every footstep sound louder than it should. She carried Max in her arms, his little blue hoodie pulled over his head. He blinked up at the lights, clutching a soft cloth giraffe. Claire's grip around him was firm, protective, not tense, but cautious. Always cautious. She scanned the room, then saw him. Tyler. He was already there, seated by the far window. Same sharp jawline, same posture, but thinner now, older. Something in his eyes was worn, not humble exactly, but cracked. Claire walked slowly to the table and sat across from him. He stared at Max for a long moment, then looked up. So, that's him. Claire nodded, keeping her tone measured. His name is Max. Tyler shifted, tapping a nervous rhythm on the table's edge. I didn't know what to say in that message. I wasn't even sure you'd answer. I almost didn't, she said. But I thought, maybe I owed Max the chance to meet the man who left before the ultrasound. Tyler flinched but didn't argue. I panicked, he said. I was scared. You were ready, and I wasn't. And then when I left, it felt easier to stay gone. Claire didn't say anything. I've been clean 8 months, he added quickly. Working part-time at a garage. I've got a sponsor. Therapy even. I'm trying. She looked at him, watching the way his shoulders sank as he spoke. Good, she said. I mean that. I hope you're really trying. I want to be there for Max, even just something, support, a voice. I don't want him growing up thinking I didn't care." Claire folded her hands around Max's little legs. "You don't get to be a voice without consistency or honesty." Tyler nodded. "I get that. I didn't expect you to look so—" He stopped. Claire raised an eyebrow. "So what?" "So strong." Her eyes stayed on him steady. "That's what motherhood does. It either breaks you or builds you, sometimes both." He smiled faintly, then reached into his jacket and pulled out a small stuffed giraffe. "I brought this. For him?" She hesitated, then took it and handed it to Max, who let out a delighted giggle and grabbed it tight. Tyler smiled, and for a split second, Claire saw the boy he used to be, before everything went sideways. Across the street, parked near a lamppost, Ethan stood watching. He hadn't followed her. She'd told him the time and the place, but still, he felt strange, waiting in the shadows. He told himself he was just making sure she was safe, but deep down, he already knew the truth. He didn't like the idea of her needing someone else, even if that someone was Max's father, even if it was fair, even if she had every right to try. Still, when he saw her smile, even a little, his chest tightened, and something inside him whispered, "You're already too close." That evening, Claire found Ethan sitting at their usual table in the food court. He looked up the moment she arrived. She sat down without a word, Max dozing in the sling against her chest. "I saw you," she said softly. "I know. You didn't have to come. I wanted to." She nodded slowly. "He wasn't what I expected." "Did he try to claim anything?" "No, not yet. He says he just wants to be present, that he's working on himself." Ethan leaned back slightly, eyes unreadable. "Do you believe him?" "I want to," she admitted, "but I don't trust easily anymore." He didn't respond, just nodded. Claire watched him. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "That I'm afraid." She blinked. "Of him?" "No," Ethan said quietly, "of losing something before it's even mine." Claire looked down, her heart tightening. "I don't want this to get complicated," she said. "I don't want to lean on you if I'm not sure where we're going." "You're not leaning," Ethan replied. "You're just letting someone walk beside you." They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Max stirred and let out a soft coo, stretching one tiny hand toward Ethan like he always did. And this time, Claire didn't stop him. Ethan reached out and gently wrapped his fingers around the baby's. Claire smiled. "He really does like you. I like him too." She looked up. "And me?" Ethan met her gaze. "More than I planned to." Just then, Claire's phone buzzed on the table. She picked it up, expecting a follow-up from the shelter, but her face changed instantly. A subtle chill swept over her features. "What is it?" Ethan asked. She turned the screen toward him. A message. No name, just a phone number she didn't recognize. "I saw you today. You looked happy. That's good. You deserve it." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Is that Tyler?" Claire shook her head. "Different number." Ethan stood. "It's not a compliment, it's a warning. Someone's watching you." Claire clutched Max closer. "I don't understand. Why?" "I don't know yet," Ethan said, "but I'm going to find out." Her voice trembled. "Ethan, what if this doesn't stop?" He looked at her, and something in his expression shifted. Less protective, more personal, fierce. "Then it doesn't stop, but you're not going through it alone." She stared at him, unsure what to say. He stepped forward, closer now. "I couldn't save Ava," he said, voice low. "But I won't let anything happen to Max, or to you." Claire felt her defenses crumble, and for the first time she nodded, not just as a mother, but as a woman who finally felt safe enough to trust. "Okay." But across the parking garage, a figure stood behind a concrete pillar, holding up a phone, taking one last photo, then slipping into the shadows without a sound. The photo arrived early the next morning. Claire had just woken up. Max was still asleep beside her, his tiny chest rising and falling in rhythm against her side. The room was quiet, the kind of silence that usually felt safe. Until her phone buzzed, she reached for it, rubbing the sleep from her eyes. No message, no name, just an image. Her fingers froze. It was her, seated at the cafe yesterday holding Max. Across from her sat Ethan, his hand gently resting over hers. The photo had been taken from outside, through the glass, from a distance. Someone had been watching them. Claire's chest tightened. She looked at Max, sleeping so peacefully, so unaware. And suddenly the air felt thinner, colder, like something had crept in overnight and stolen her sense of safety. Without thinking, she called Ethan. He answered on the first ring. "Claire? I got another message," she said, her voice low, tight. "A photo of us. I'm coming to get you. Stay inside." Less than an hour later, Claire sat in a private office at the Blake Foundation. The windows had been covered. Max was curled in her lap, sucking on his pacifier. Ethan stood near the door, pacing, phone in hand, jaw clenched tight. He stopped when her voice broke the silence. Why would someone do this? Ethan looked at her, then sat down slowly. Because someone wants to rattle you, or me. Maybe both. Claire showed him the image again. This wasn't random. "No," he agreed. "This was personal." He tapped his fingers on the table, then took a slow breath. "There's something I haven't told you, about Ava, and what came after she passed." Claire leaned in, listening. Ethan's voice dropped. "After Ava died, I was a mess. My marriage collapsed, my reputation took a hit, and then people started showing up. Reporters, grifters. One man claimed he was Ava's biological father." Claire's eyes widened. "He forged documents," Ethan continued. "Tried to extort me with fake DNA results. When I refused to pay, he escalated. Followed me, took photos, made threats." Claire looked down at her hands. "You think this could be him?" "I don't know, but the way this is happening, it's familiar." She didn't say anything for a while. "I can't let anything happen to Max." Ethan leaned forward. "Nothing will." Claire met his gaze, and for the first time, she let him see the fear in her eyes. "I don't want to run again, Ethan. I just got a job. I was starting to breathe." "I know. And I don't want to put you in danger either." "You didn't," he said softly. "I walked into this, eyes open." She swallowed hard. "I'm scared." Ethan reached across the table and covered her hand with his. "Then let me be the one standing still while the rest of the world spins." Claire's eyes glistened, but before either of them could speak again, a knock came at the door. It was one of Ethan's security leads. "We found something," the man said, holding a folder. "The number that sent the photo, it was from a burner, no registration, but there's more." Ethan stood, taking the folder. "What is it?" "There were more photos, posted to a blog, anonymous. The account is connected to a masked IP, but we traced the pattern. It matches a user alias that's been flagged before." He placed a printed page on the table. Claire's breath caught. There she was, again. Billionaire Blake's Hidden Life, Mystery Woman and Secret Baby? Below the headline were more photos, ones Claire hadn't seen before. One of her and Ethan walking, one of Max in her arms. A blurry image of Ethan holding the child. The comments underneath were cruel. "Of course, gold digger. Kid doesn't even look like him. Watch, she'll sue him next." Claire's hands trembled as she read. Her voice cracked. "They think I'm using you." "They don't know you," Ethan said firmly, "and I don't care what they think." "But I do," she whispered, "because I've worked too hard to be dismissed like this, because I've fought for every single breath since Max was born." He stepped closer, voice steady. "Then we fight louder." She shook her head. "This isn't a battle I can afford. I can. But I don't want your name saving mine. Ethan paused, then said gently, "This isn't about saving you. It's about standing with you." Claire turned away, wiping a tear. "I didn't ask for this. Any of it. I know. And now, Max is a headline." "He's more than that," Ethan said. "He's the reason I feel alive again." Claire looked at him, startled by the depth in his voice. And that's when her phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a text. It was a call. "Blocked number." Ethan gestured. "Answer. Put it on speaker." Claire hesitated, then hit the green button and slowly placed the phone on the table. A voice came through, distorted, robotic, but undeniably human underneath. "You made your choice, Claire. But choices come with consequences. You're not the only one with something to lose." Then silence. Then the call ended. Max whimpered in her arms. Claire pulled him close, pressing her lips to his hair. "You're safe, baby. You're safe." Ethan's entire posture changed. Still, sharp, protective. "This ends now," he said, turning to his security team. "I want every trace, every account, every shadow investigated. Someone's hiding, and I want them out in the light." Then he looked back at Claire. "I couldn't stop what happened to Ava." His voice cracked, just a little. "But I can protect you, and Max, and I will." Claire stared at him, speechless. And slowly, something inside her shifted. This wasn't charity. It wasn't even kindness. It was something deeper. A promise. And this time, she let herself believe it. Claire didn't sleep that night. She lay awake in the quiet guest room Ethan had prepared for her at the Blake Foundation. A simple, warm space far from the noise and cold of the shelter. Max slept peacefully beside her, his soft breath warm against her arm, his tiny fingers still wrapped around the edge of her shirt. But Claire's eyes stayed wide open, watching the shadows move on the ceiling. She was safe, for now. But she had felt safe before, and that illusion had shattered too easily. Now, someone was out there, watching, waiting, and she couldn't afford to be caught off guard again. The next morning, Ethan gathered his team in a private meeting room. Blinds drawn, voices low. Claire stood near the back, Max in her arms. She watched as Ethan, now in a dark shirt and no tie, moved with quiet precision. Calm, controlled, focused. He wasn't rattled. He was activated. "I want to know who's behind the calls, the messages, and the blog post," Ethan said. "I want every IP traced. Footage from the cafe, the food court, the parking structure, all of it." His lead security officer stepped forward with a folder. "We ran the image from the mall through facial recognition. Got a match." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Who is it?" The officer placed the folder in his hands. Ethan opened it and froze. Claire immediately noticed the change in his face, a sharp flicker of disbelief, followed by a slow, burning tension in his jaw. "What is it?" she asked, voice low. He turned the folder toward her. Her heart nearly stopped. The photo was grainy but unmistakable. Tyler. Claire staggered a step back. "No, that can't be right." Ethan's voice was flat. "It is." "No, he came to talk. He was calm. He gave Max a toy. He said he just wanted to be present. He didn't." "He lied," Ethan said. "The blog post came from an IP address tied to an alias he's used before. The photo of us was uploaded from his device." Claire clutched Max closer, her throat tightening. "But why would he do that? Why would he come to me, pretend to care?" "Because people like Tyler don't want connection," Ethan said. "They want control. The moment you moved on, the moment he saw Max trusting someone else, he wanted to sabotage it." Claire felt as if the air had been pulled from the room. "I don't know what's real anymore," she whispered. Ethan stepped toward her. "This is." He gently placed his hand over Max's back. The baby stirred, then settled again against her shoulder. "Let me help you take control back," Ethan said softly. She looked into his eyes, steady, unwavering. "Okay," she said. "What do we do?" By noon, they were standing inside a family court building. Claire held Max tightly while Ethan spoke with his legal team. She could barely process the cold floors, the white walls, the hum of printers and footsteps echoing through the hall. She had walked into buildings like this before, but never with someone at her side. She watched Ethan speak to the lawyer, calm, professional, but every word sharp with urgency. When he returned, he spoke gently. "The emergency protection order will be filed today. Tyler will be legally barred from approaching you or Max. He'll be notified soon." Claire nodded slowly. "That means he'll know we're pushing back." "Yes," Ethan said, "and that's exactly what he needs to know." Claire bit her lip. "I hate that it came to this. I hate that he's still a shadow in my life." "You're not in his shadow anymore," Ethan said. "You've stepped into your own light." She exhaled slowly, her grip on Max easing just a little. Then softly, "You've done more for us than I know how to thank you for." Ethan looked at her. "Then let me do one more thing." Claire blinked. "What?" He hesitated. Then, "I want to give Max my last name." The silence stretched between them. Claire's eyes widened. "Ethan, I know it's sudden," he said, "and I'm not trying to replace anyone, but I want him to grow up knowing that someone chose to stand by him, fully, that he wasn't just helped, he was claimed." She swallowed hard. "That's not a small offer." "It's not," Ethan said. "It's a promise." Claire looked at Max, then back at him, and slowly she nodded. That night, they returned to Ethan's penthouse, not as guests, not as strangers, but as something closer to family. Claire stood in the kitchen warming a bottle while Max cooed from his seat nearby. The space didn't feel so cold now, not so distant. There were baby toys in the corner, a soft blanket on the couch, a picture of Ava by the window, now joined by a new frame, empty but waiting. Ethan stepped in quietly. Removing his watch, his shirt sleeves rolled. "I've been thinking," he said. Claire turned to him. "About?" "You and Max, and your future." She waited. "I want you both to live here," he said gently. "No expectations, no strings, just safety. A place where Max can grow up without fear. A place where you can breathe." Claire was silent for a long time. Then she whispered, "Why are you doing this for us?" Ethan looked at her with eyes that no longer hid behind anything. "Because you brought life back into a house filled with silence." Claire blinked hard, holding back the wave. "Because I couldn't save Ava," he continued, "but I can build something that honors her, by protecting you." She stepped closer, and slowly she took his hand. But before either could say more, a knock came at the door. Ethan frowned. It was late, too late. He walked cautiously to the door, peered through the peephole, and stiffened, then opened it. And there stood Tyler, his hoodie soaked with rain, his expression wild, not angry, not broken, but haunted. "I need to talk to Claire," he said. Ethan didn't move. "You're not supposed to be here." Tyler looked over Ethan's shoulder. "She needs to hear something. I made a mistake. It's not just about Max." Claire appeared behind Ethan, arms wrapped around her child. Tyler's eyes flicked to her. "It's about him." Ethan frowned. "What are you talking about?" Tyler's voice dropped. "I know what happened to your daughter, because someone close to you made sure I'd find out." Claire looked at Ethan, confused. And Ethan. He stood perfectly still, not at the accusation, but at the name he knew was coming. Ethan stood frozen in the doorway. Rain dripped from Tyler's hood as he spoke, his eyes wild but focused. "Elena Rowe." The name dropped like a stone into still water. Claire stood behind Ethan, Max resting heavily on her shoulder, both of them silent. Ethan slowly stepped back as if the room had tilted. Claire looked at him. "Who is she?" Tyler answered first. "She was Ava's nanny, right?" Ethan nodded slowly. She was more than that. She was with Ava almost every day. For years. Claire stepped forward cautiously. What does she have to do with this? Tyler ran a hand through his wet hair. After I saw the blog post, I got a message from a blocked account. It said I didn't know the full story, that Blake wasn't the man the public thought he was, that Ava's death wasn't as simple as it looked. Ethan clenched his jaw. That's a lie. I didn't know that, Tyler said, his voice quiet now. But I looked. I traced the IP. It pinged from a public library near where she used to live. And the writing and the messages, it sounded personal, like someone who knew you. Claire stared at Ethan. What happened between you and her? Ethan sat down slowly, like the weight of everything had finally caught up. After Ava died? I disappeared. I didn't show up to the memorial the staff held. I cut ties. I thought shutting everything out would protect me. He swallowed. Elena was devastated. She blamed herself for not seeing the signs earlier. She blamed me for leaving everything behind. Claire's voice softened. She felt abandoned. Ethan nodded. And I abandoned her, just like I abandoned Ava's memory for a while. A silence fell over the room. Max let out a tiny yawn, breaking the tension for a moment. Claire finally said, Do you think it's her? Sending the photos? The threats? Ethan looked at her, pain in his eyes. I think she wanted someone to feel what she felt. Invisible. Ignored. Grieving without a name. Tyler stepped forward slowly. She never wanted to hurt you. I think she was just lost. Claire exhaled. Like we all were once. 2 days later, they found her. A community center across town. She'd been working with families dealing with grief. Quietly, off the radar. Her face thinner, older, but her eyes still familiar. When Ethan stepped into the hallway and said her name, she froze. Elena, he said gently. Why didn't you come to me? She turned, and for a long moment, they just stared at each other. I didn't think you wanted to remember, she said softly. I didn't know how. Tears welled in her eyes. I wasn't trying to destroy you. I was trying to make you look back. Ava deserved to be remembered. She never stopped being remembered, Ethan said. I just didn't know how to carry her and keep moving. Claire, standing nearby with Max, spoke then. She would have wanted all of you to move forward, together. Elena nodded, wiping her face. I'm sorry for the fear, for the pain. I just didn't know where to put all this grief. Ethan took a step closer. Then maybe we figure it out now. In the weeks that followed, things began to settle. The blog disappeared. The photos were removed. The anonymous comments faded into silence. Tyler kept his distance, respecting the protection order, but sending monthly letters for Max. Letters Claire stored in a box, unopened for now. Maybe someday. Elena joined the Blake Foundation again, not as a nanny but as a grief counselor, helping families, speaking Ava's name not with sadness, but with light. And Claire? She started working full-time at the foundation, not out of obligation, but because it gave her purpose and peace. One Sunday morning, Claire stood in the foundation's garden with Ethan and Max. Sunlight filtered through the trees. Max toddled on uncertain feet across the grass, giggling as Ethan held out his arms. He stumbled forward and landed right in Ethan's chest. Ethan laughed, a full, unguarded laugh that Claire hadn't heard before. She watched them with quiet awe. She had lost so much. But somehow, she had gained something she never thought she'd have again, a future. Months later, at a small event for donors, Claire stepped up to a microphone. She wore a simple navy dress. Max sat beside Ethan in the front row, chewing happily on a toy giraffe. Claire cleared her throat and began. There was a time when I fed my baby with leftovers from a stranger's tray. I sat in a corner hoping no one would notice me. Not out of shame, but because I was tired of hearing no. Tired of being invisible. She looked down at Ethan and smiled. But one person noticed. And he didn't ask what I needed. He just sat down. A quiet murmur ran through the room. That single choice. One seat, one meal, one moment. turned into a second chance. Not just for me, but for Max, and for someone else who had lost more than he could carry alone. She paused, her voice thick with emotion. We often wait for someone to save us, but sometimes all we need is for someone to stay. The room fell into reverent silence. Max let out a little cheer. Everyone laughed, gently, and behind them, in a small frame resting on a nearby table, sat two photos. One of Ava, smiling under a ceiling full of glow-in-the-dark stars, and the other, Max, wrapped in Claire's arms, smiling into Ethan's chest. Different lives, same kind of love. The end. And now it's your turn. Have you ever had someone sit with you in your hardest moment? Or have you ever been that person for someone else? Tell us below. Someone out there may need your story more than you think.